Thank you for joining us for the IDX Broker webinar. Today we're going to talk about your leads, how to capture and manage. Just to get started, I want to let you know that this webinar is going to be, we're going to start off with a little bit of basic information. We're likely to do a more advanced webinar on this particular topic down the road, but I think it's a good idea to kind of get started with some of the basics in how to capture leads, how to manage to convert those leads that you get through your IDX website. I wanted to start off by showing you guys a quick graph. This came from an Inman article that was recently published, and it's the top 10 most effective lead providers. We all know about the big aggregators and the syndicators that are out there and folks that are paying for those leads, but this company, Agent Machine or Referral Exchange, did a survey of 7,800 agents, and granted this was back in July of last year, but I think it's definitely applicable to our webinar today and where we see agents getting most of their leads. As you can see here in this particular graph, we've got 29% of those that were surveyed saying that their leads came from their personal websites or listings versus 15 for Zillow, 11 for Trulia, and Realtor.com was even beat out by personal referrals and sphere of influence. I think this is particularly interesting in the fact that although most of the discussion, most of the ideas about syndication and using websites like Zillow and Trulia to pay for leads, everybody has their own ideas about the benefits of that. But we see here, specifically to these 7,800 agents that were surveyed, that 30% of them just about saw the most beneficial and the most effective lead provider as being their own personal website. At IDX Broker, obviously what we do is we provide that conduit between the MLS and your personal website to provide the MLS leads, which is the source, and one of the questionable reasons folks have issues with the syndicators is the lack of accuracy. And of course, you know, pulling your information from your MLS through to your personal website via IDX, you're basically the source of that information and the up-to-date information on whether a home is particularly listed for sale, etc. So we love this graphic in showing you guys that the benefits of having your own IDX website is huge in today's market because the consumer is looking for those folks that they know are specifically experts in a certain area. Whereas with the large syndicators, they're not getting some of the information that you guys are providing on your own websites if you have those built, and if not, your ideas that you're going to implement into building your own website. So I thought this was very applicable to start off with. So why IDX? One of the things that makes IDX different in the way that you can build your website is that you help the consumer find, not just search. And what I mean by that is the particular capability to build community pages, to build neighborhood pages that are specific to what the consumer is actually looking for. We know that based on information that comes from keyword searches and some of our SEO experts that we have inside of IDX, that consumers aren't searching for, example, homes for sale in Houston. That's obviously way too broad of a search. What they're doing is they're searching for more specific areas of town. Me being in Houston, I do business mostly on the north side of town. We have particularly a community that some people are familiar with called the Woodlands. Inside of the Woodlands, there's little villages that are essentially neighborhoods or subdivisions, if you will, and those are all named something different. Panther Creek, Cochran's Crossing, different things like that. And so what we see the consumer doing is going online and running searches in the search engines for homes for sale in Cochran's Crossing. Not even homes for sale in the Woodlands, because the consumer knows a specific part of town, whether it be again, a neighborhood or a small community, and this is specifically what they're searching for. The large aggregators do this to a certain extent, but what they are not providing is boots on the ground information that you as a real estate agent is providing. And what this does for the consumer is it gives them a more specific view into the community and into the area, again, knowing that your site is the source of the information. It's authoritative because that information that lists the homes for sale is specific and comes straight from the MLS. So they know they're getting current, up-to-date information, not just on listings, But if you're doing a really good job, which we'll talk about in a little bit, about providing content about those neighborhoods and communities, you're helping the consumer find and not just search 36,000 listings, but instead what they're doing is they're searching a smaller number of listings to help them more particularly find a home. Another reason why IDX is, again, you're the source. Your website is authoritative because it gets the direct information straight from your MLS link. And there's no question about the accuracy because you're pulling that information straight from your MLS. The third reason why IDX that I have listed here is to capture leads and build relationships. We're going to talk a little bit about building the relationships after you've captured that lead and what you can do to initiate more conversation and engagement with those that are giving you their information through their website. The first thing I want to talk about is building your website or building your IDX to capture. The four things that I have listed here are: make sure that your website and your IDX pages that you have set up are simple to navigate. Make sure that you provide content. We'll go again into more detail about that here in a moment. Provide calls to action. Give somebody a reason to continue to engage with your website, to stay on your website, and to continue to click through the different pages that you provide, whether, again, it's listings or blogging information about particular neighborhoods or communities that you're featuring on your website. And then the fourth thing we're going to talk about is visitor registration, as this is one of the biggest questions that we have about gaining leads on your website. So let's talk about setting up a website that's simple to navigate. You want a clean and crisp UI, or what is also known as a user interface. Don't give the consumer too much to draw their attention from the main idea of the website, which is for them to help find a home. Okay, we want to provide easy to find search options, and we want to provide those calls to action. Now, even though the graph that I showed at the beginning of the webinar here talked about how personal websites are the ones that are producing more leads for those particular agents that were surveyed, we know that based on numbers that there are particularly 3 home search websites that are beating the competition based on clicks and based on the amount of consumers that are visiting their site. So whether you like it or not, I'm going to give you an example of some sites with a clean, crisp user interface. And what you'll find is that these 3 sites that I pull up, which are the ones that everybody knows, have something very similar and so much in common that it should just jump right out at you and grab you. So this is Trulia. Obviously, you'll see a very simple and crisp user interface. And what is it asking the consumer to do? Your home for real estate. It's asking the consumer to search. What's Zillow asking a consumer to do? Find your way home. Start typing an address, neighborhood, city, or zip code, okay? And then finally, Realtor.com. You'll see all 3 of these have one big thing in common, and that's a very simple option for the consumer to search and to start their search, which is something that we obviously highly recommend. A good, clean, crisp user interface that doesn't draw the consumer away from doing the one thing that they came to do. So let's talk about content. In your content, you want to get local, okay? You want to create evergreen searches, and you want to blog on locations of your expertise. When I say get local, as I go back to the example that I was using about my particular market, which is in the Woodlands, we have many of the villages or the small neighborhoods or communities. Providing those searches that are specific to those areas is very important, again, because the consumer is going to log on to one of the search engines and type homes for sale in Cochran's Crossing. And they may even get more specific and say homes for sale in Cochran's Crossing 300,000. And what that does is brings up the opportunity, because you've set up these specific searches in your website, to pull those specific listings that meet the criteria that the consumer is going in and searching for. Creating evergreen searches, what I mean by this is inside of your IDX dashboard, you're creating these searches that will continuously pull from the MLS. So if you set a search that says homes in Cochran's Crossing, 300,000 to 400,000, and you're setting up an individual page on your website that is specific to that search, what it's doing is it's continually pulling from the MLS, looking for homes that meet that criteria, and it's pushing those listings straight to your website. Now, you don't ever have to change that search unless you want to expand on that, But what that evergreen means is that it lasts forever because it's continually pulling those listings from your MLS that meet those search criteria that you've set up. Belonging on locations of your expertise. This is big as well because when the search engines look for those keyword searches, they're looking for websites that provide that expertise or that provide that information that the consumer is looking for and searching on. So not only are you providing an evergreen search with MLS content that shows homes that are listed specifically to that area, but if you're also blogging about those locations and what amenities those neighborhoods or those communities provide, the search engines are going to love you, and they're going to give you some rank when it comes to your website showing up, which obviously in order to get the leads, and that's where we're all going with this, is what can we do to put ourselves in front of the consumer that's going to draw those leads in. These are all things that are very important. Having a call to action, okay? Give a compelling reason for the consumer to give you their information. Offer an item of value and be considerate. So giving a compelling reason could be a number of things. It could be get a list of restaurants that are within walking distance of Cochran's Crossing, if you will. Offer an item of value. So many consumers are searching the website looking for listings because they're interested in finding out what their home could possibly be worth. So instead of just looking at the option of providing these websites and these evergreen searches for buyers, you'd be surprised how many sellers are actually going in and looking at these pages as well because they're interested in knowing what their home is worth. Having a call to action that says, receive a current market analysis of Cochran's Crossing is a huge call to action when somebody can simply give you their email address and their name and have these reports available. One of the tools that I love is the Realtor's Property Resource, is you can create a report inside of RPR, have that in a Dropbox or a Google Drive that's easily accessible, and when that lead hits your email within that 5-minute time frame, you can very easily respond with that item of value. What you've done there is you've been considerate of the consumer's request for more information, number one. And number two, you didn't ask them for some really specific information as far as their address, which some studies have shown that a consumer is more likely to give a more broad scope of information in the initial email or in the initial registration. That asking for a specific home address to give them a value, you're more likely to get that lead by offering a more broad report or market analysis. And that gives you kind of a foot in the door, if you will, that starts that relationship. And then later on, when you're creating your systems and processes for following up, you can offer that more specific home valuation report to their property. We found that offering the market analysis reports for a more broad area, that scope of the neighborhood that they're looking in, is a great way to capture that first lead, and it's a great call to action. So let's talk about visitor registration, because this is one of the big things that folks really have a lot of questions about. When setting up an IDX website, you're looking for the leads, obviously. You're looking for the option to get some information from folks to create that relationship that will convert to a client. So when considering to force or not force, I probably should have swapped these bullet points. But I want to ask, what is your end goal, okay? When we talk about forcing a registration or not forcing a registration, there's two schools of thought. The thought on forcing a registration is that if you want access to the listings, if you want access to the information that I'm providing on my website, I want to know who you are and I want to be able to follow up with you. What we find here is that bounce rates are a little bit higher, but those that do provide their information on a forced registration are typically a little bit hotter lead because they're more inclined to be closer to making some sort of a purchase or selling decision. To not force, I'm more specific. I'm more particularly a fan of not forcing registration. And the reason for this is that, again, you have those that may be 6 to 12 to 18 months out in their purchase or sell decision. And by requesting their information right up front, likely what you've done is you've sent them to another website in where they can search and continue to get information by visiting a site without having to provide their email address. unfortunately, not just the real estate industry, but others as well, have a bad reputation for spamming specific people that give us their email addresses. So for this particular reason, I've chosen not to force registration. Within IDX Broker, we have a number of different preferences that you can choose from in how you require your leads to register. So we have some preset registration preferences here inside of the IDX middleware or your dashboard. And what we have is a conservative setting, a balanced, and aggressive, and then we have a custom setting that allows you to really dig deep and specifically set up those registration preferences for each individual page or search that you have set up. A conservative setting will allow your site visitors to browse your pages without any interruption. So they won't get a pop-up, they won't be asked for any of their email address or name or any of that information, okay? So they have the opportunity to fill out the registration form if in fact they feel that they are ready for you to contact them. We have a balance setting that gets your site visitors interested and engaged in their search, and then lets them look at a few listings before capturing their information in the lead. Then of course the aggressive is we strongly encourage your visitors to register as a lead by prompting them with a sign up on every few searches, okay? For some that can get a little bit, it would get a little bit annoying, but then again, if you've got that hotter lead, if you've got that consumer that's looking to be a little bit more closer to making a decision, they're likely to fill out that registration form and give you their information. Further in the lead registration preferences, you can go in and you can set up your sign up page here. You can block all lead submissions originating out of North America. I don't obviously have this set as no, because if I have any international folks that are looking for homes in my particular area, I want to be able to let them submit themselves as a lead. We have a CAPTCHA on lead registration, which just will require somebody, as you see in a number of sites, says if you're not a robot, enter this particular code in order for that registration to go through. I have that set as no. I don't really find my site being spammed by anybody. But then here you have the current sign up form preview. You can add more fields to this. I've gone pretty simple with just first name, last name, and email address. Again, I've found that more consumers are willing to give me their information if I'm asking for less rather than more. We also provide in the email verification, the consumer that signs up, the lead if you will get an email from you, and you can have that, you can set your greetings and the verification email with some custom information. You can customize the subject line, which I've got your recent registration with Ryan Bocross and Legacy Texas Properties. You can customize the message. Mine is just the default that says, thank you for registering with Ryan Bocross. And then the email verification greeting, you can change that as well. You can get more specific as to exactly what the email says as well. There's a lot of personal options here that give you the opportunity to really customize the lead registration and what the consumer gets from you once they've given you their information. So managing your leads. One of the things that I am a big proponent of is systems and processes. I find in my part of my career where I was doing a lot of coaching and teaching and training of agents, I found a lot of agents that felt as though they weren't getting their money out of either their personal website or leads that they were getting from other sources. And in digging deeper with these agents, what I found was that they really didn't have a system or process set up to follow up and or nurture the leads that they're getting once somebody has reached out and said, here's my information. So before really digging deep, and again, this webinar is a little bit more basic because we want to just cover the surface of the importance of capturing leads and managing those leads and how that kind of looks in IDX Broker. But one of the things that I really think that everybody needs to do is, as part of their website plan, develop a system and a process for making sure that you're able to reply to those leads with the information that they're requesting, number one, and that you're replying in a timely manner. There are plenty of studies that show that after 5 minutes of sending out a request for information, the likelihood of you maintaining that lead or converting that lead or building a relationship further with that lead reduces significantly. There's obviously many auto-responding options that you have inside of different CRMs or your email provider that can definitely get you within this 5-minute rule to make a quick response. Again, some things that we may cover in our next webinar, which is going to be more advanced, are using things like BombBomb, which is a video email, where you could set up an email response that actually has a video of you thanking the consumer for giving you their name and their email address and letting them know that you or somebody from your team is going to be responding to them with the information that they've requested. So there's some advanced options that you can use in making sure that you're responding to those leads and that you're reaching out in a timely manner and making them feel as though that they're important and that they're not just another person filling out name and email address on a website somewhere, which is the whole idea of conversion, is building a relationship with that consumer, with that person that decided to give you their information. That's the end goal. And obviously creating a relationship with somebody is going to get you one step closer to turning them into a client, because consumers want to do business with somebody they know, like, and trust. And trust comes from making sure that you're responsive. Getting to know you is by you being thoughtful in your responses. And liking you, well, you just got to be a likable person in order for the consumer to open up to you as well. Do you use a CRM? My personal opinion on this is that absolutely every single agent that gets their real estate license, this is absolutely the first thing that somebody needs to do. And I know that so many folks in our business are not good at using a CRM or a client relationship manager, a database, whatever you want to call it. There are so many different names for it. One of the questions that we get with IDX Broker is, do my leads that come in from my IDX website, can they go right into my CRM? We currently have a direct integration with Top Producer, which is obviously a very popular CRM that's out there. And through a lead API and email parsing, we can work with any CRM out there with those tools. We are currently working on and are always working on new things at IDX Broker. And we're currently working on direct integrations with many of the popular real estate CRMs that are on the market. So keep on the lookout for that. But definitely, if you're using a CRM outside of Top Producer and you want some help understanding that lead API and email parsing, our support team is more than happy to help you understand that process and getting your leads pushed into your CRM. Now, if you would like to manage your leads inside of the IDX middleware, this is an example of how you can take a look at your leads that come in through your website. We have a number of different options for you to filter your leads that come in, whether they're new, if they have a saved search, some of the questions that they're asked whenever they come in as a lead. Do you let the lead receive property updates? Do they have, are they fully subscribed? Have they verified? So whenever they receive their registration email, did they verify that? You'll see down here at the bottom, I've just got 3 example leads. 2 of those are verified and 1 is unverified. So one of my friends wanted to see the website and take a look at the verification process and went in, but he never verified his email address. So that's just a couple of examples there that we've put in there. So again, when managing your leads, think about the systems and processes that you have set into place. And when I talk about the systems and processes, make sure that you're setting up those that are specific to the type of leads that you're going to get. Okay, so you're going to get buyer leads. You're going to get buyer leads that are perhaps investors. You're going to get buyer leads that come across all scopes of demographics. So when you're setting up your systems and processes, be thoughtful in the way that you're going to respond to those different leads in the fact that they're looking for something different. Okay, your sellers are going to be looking for something different than your buyers, obviously. So have those different systems and processes set up and put into place, so that whenever those leads do come in, you know exactly what you're going to do, and you have a touch system set up that's going to nurture those leads and help you towards conversion. Consider the 5-minute rule, as these 5-minute rules are again very specific, and there's a lot of statistics out there that show the consumer is online and they're giving you their information. They're wanting something instant. They're wanting something really quick. And so one of the fields that you could put into your lead registration could be the phone number. And in my opinion, if a consumer puts a phone number into a lead registration, don't reply with an email. Pick up the phone and call that person and say, thank you for providing your phone number. I imagine the reason you provided your phone number was because you're willing to have a phone conversation. How can I help you? This is huge in converting leads. Again, do you use a CRM? You should be using something to help you manage your database, whether they are leads that come in from your IDX Broker website, whether they're referrals from friends and family. All of these things are very important in managing your leads. And I go back to the original graphic that we talked about at the beginning of the webinar, and that the 10 most effective lead providers, the number one, was their personal website and their own listing. So what I'd like you to do is consider what you're doing with your IDX website. Consider what you're doing to provide those specific searches to the consumers that you're looking to reach out to and that you're looking to capture those leads. By providing local content and the evergreen searches that are specific to neighborhoods, what you've done is you've given yourself the opportunity to show up in those searches that the consumer's doing. When they're going to the search engines again and they're typing homes for sale in, name that specific community. Does your website give that consumer the opportunity to look at homes for sale in that specific community without browsing through 15,000 other listings that your MLS may have? This is really big, and we talk about lead capture, we talk about managing those leads, but the key to capturing those leads is making sure that you're showing up in front of the consumer. And I think so many times people forget the idea of, I have a website, it should automatically just bring leads my way because I've got it set up. And that's not necessarily the case. I mean, we do index all the listings that come through, and your website is, we do with our Platinum product. We do send an XML sitemap to all of the search engines automatically for you. So you already have some of those things working just with your IDX Broker subscription. But one of the things that we really want to provide the consumer, and one of the things that we at IDX Broker really love to help our customers do, is understand the best way to show up in those search engine results when the consumer is typing in those long tail keyword searches. So with that said, we're just over the 25-minute mark, which I think we did pretty good there. So we're going to open it up to any questions. If you have any questions, type them into the question box, and I am more than happy to answer those questions here and get you guys moving on with your IDX sites and catching more leads out there. Linda Johnson wrote, can I use IDX Broker in my top producer website? I think your top producer website already has an IDX feed in it through top producer or realtor.com. I'm not sure exactly what your question is there. If you could specifically clarify that. IDX Broker works in a number of different web platforms. We work really super well with WordPress, as all the plugins and everything are already built. But we can work well with just about any web platform that's out there. So Linda, if you want to reach out to one of our support guys and get a more specific answer to your question there, we're very happy to make sure that that you get your question answered. So I have a question here that says, do you recommend buying leads? You know, one of the things that I recommend is for somebody to really consider your business plan. Buying leads or spending the time and the financial resources to create a website that's going to automatically bring you leads, those are two different schools of thought, and there's something that each individual agent needs to consider inside of their business plan. You know, buying leads, in my opinion, is a temporary solution to a long-term problem, because if you're not investing in creating a solution that's going to continue to bring you leads and sustain your business that way, then you're always going to have to pay for those. So my recommendation is obviously to spend the financial resources and the time up front to create a solution, create a website that's going to continually bring you leads and that's going to sustain you in that manner you're really investing more on the front end, time-wise and financial-wise, of building a great website that's going to capture those leads and that's going to continue to bring you leads. So my recommendation in buying leads, if once you're getting your website started and you want to supplement yourself at first and buy leads before your website is complete and up and bringing in its own leads, perhaps that's a solution that one could use. But I seriously recommend spending the time and the financial resources to build out a website that's going to sustain you long term in providing those leads. Let's see here. Can you advise on the best strategy to name pages for communities for SEO? Sure, Christy. I think that one of the best strategies out there is to consider what the consumer is going to be putting into the search engines. So, for example, is the way that I put homes for sale in Cochran's Crossing, if you will. I think that's a great way to name a page for the SEO. However, a lot of the search engines have started to change their algorithms from looking at the URLs as much as they used to, and now what they're really doing is they're crawling the entire site and the page for the content. So if you're building out a site that says, or you're building a page that says homes for sale in Panther Creek, it's the content on that page that the search engines are going to really be looking for more so than what the URL is. So obviously consider what the consumer is going to be putting into the search engines when you're naming those pages, but be more thoughtful in the content and the information that you're actually providing on that page, because that's what the search engines are really going to be looking for. JC made a good point here. He said, in buying leads, using a pay-per-click program is the best way to buy leads. I think that's a great suggestion there. If you're looking to buy leads and you've built out your website, use a pay-per-click program through Google or perhaps some Facebook ads to drive that traffic to your own website, as opposed to relying on the traffic that some of the aggregators or syndicators are bringing in and paying for those leads, because I know there's a couple of different ways you can buy leads from those guys, but more so what they're providing is impressions. What you're doing by buying into a pay-per-click program is you're buying clicks straight into your website. There's some different ways to go about that, and again, that's a pretty advanced topic, I think, in moving toward buying leads, and you have to be really careful with some of the pay-per-click programs. There's definitely some options there that could help drive traffic to your website for sure. All right, Dawn's question is, when you are showing the success of sites with a single search bar front and center of the landing page, how much better are those sites performing, especially compared to a site where the search bar shares page space with, say, featured properties or whatnot? Dawn, I think this is kind of a trial and error, and it really depends on your market. Some folks are a little bit more visual. We actually have a couple of popular themes that we've seen, that instead of the search bar being the first thing you see on the page, it's actually a map that uses a geolocation feature to show homes for sale on a map. We do see that some of those are very successful as well. It's kind of a trial and error. I don't know that I have any specific numbers to show how good those sites are performing compared to some others. Featured properties underneath a simple user interface above the fold is definitely a great option. Again, whenever you're considering setting up that's just the home page. As I discussed, I think when the consumer is using those search engines and they're searching more specific for properties in a specific community or in a specific area, what you'll find is that the consumer is going to end up landing on an actual page in your website instead of the home page. Where I think the home page is important in providing a clean user interface and a way for the consumer to find those individual pages on your website. I think it's more important to focus on those community pages and those neighborhood pages, to where that's what's going to show up when a consumer is searching for homes in Panther Creek. When they click that link from Google, it's going to actually take them to the page in your website, not your home page. So focus on, I think focusing on the actual pages. A good homepage is great, but where the consumer is more likely to land is on a page inside of your page. Let's see here. All right. Well, I think that is there a widget already created similar to the simple ones on Trulia, Zillow, and Realtor.com? Tim, I'm not sure exactly what widget you're discussing. We do have a number of widgets already created inside of your IDX dashboard. So depending on what specific widget you're talking about, if it's a quick search widget or a lead capture widget, I'm not sure exactly what your question is there, but we do have a number of widgets already created. Yes. All right. So this looks like just about all of the questions that have come through. Okay. So once again, yes, there is going to be a recording available. We have recorded the webinar, so that will be available shortly after we close out the webinar. We'll make sure that that hits the proper sources so that everybody can get their copy and send it to their friends if they'd like. So thank you guys for your time. Thank you for sticking around. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email at Ryan, that's R-Y-A-N, at idxbroker.com. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to shoot us an email, idxbroker.com. There's a lot of information on there about the specific products that we have in our Light and in our Platinum product. We've got a list with our developer partners, so if you're thinking about building a website, we have our wonderful sister company, Agent Evolution, that provides those websites and those themes. We also have a list of developer partners as well on our site, so check us out at idxbroker.com. And again, thank you guys for coming in, and have an awesome day.